with. So you're very welcome. And trying to get my system here to work well. Okay, I think we are good to go. Let me see. Okay. Good morning once again, and you're very welcome to this I guess this is our last meeting for this month of November. We are closing November, and we're looking forward to start December as we wind down the year. I'm very excited to run down the year, but then in the end, I'm also waiting to sit down and really look at what I have done and what I've learned for the past 1 year who have been together in this forum. Of course, it's very important that every time you get involved in things like this, in the end, you should be able to sit and say, okay, I have been taking this activity for this long. So what have I learned so far? How have I moved? Have I made any progress? And this I'm speaking to your progress in your PhD journey, in your study. So I just want to really thank you very much for consistently logging in every Sunday morning. I want to really begin by recognizing and appreciating our mentor, senior mentor, Professor Joseph Mtai. Other than having the love for the students, he's one person who does not give up on you. So once he has chosen to move with you, he really never gives up on you. Some of us have worked with him for almost coming to 2 years now, and we see that he's one person who does not give up on you despite your weaknesses, despite your failures. So we really thank you, Prof, for your love and for your commitment to see people grow. There are a number of professors that will be coming along, a number of doctors will be joining along, but as we wait to kickstart, as we wait for some few people to log in, I want to give this opportunity to you to say hi. I want to start with Dorcas, Madame Dorcas Kalembe. Can you say hi to us?
Hello, sorry, my gadget was failing, but I'm not asleep. I'm very much awake. Thank you, Professor, for these sessions. We do appreciate, and at least now we realize there is a transition from who we were before to where we are. Personally, I have learned a lot in these sessions, and I never want to miss, unlike otherwise. Also, thank you, our chair, for this session. That's all.
Welcome. That's really a good report, certainly. Thank you very much. Gloria, Madam Gloria, can you say hi to us?
Hello. Thank you,
Hello.
Chair. Hello, Chairman. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Yeah, I'm awake. I've been off for some time, but now I'm back.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Welcome back, Gloria. We've been missing you. Welcome back.
Thank you so much.
Welcome. Samuel. Samuel, can you say hi to us? Yes, Samuel, are you there? Okay, Samuel could be having issues with his gadget as well. My sister, Peace to Shabe. Can you say hi to us?
Yes, my brother, morning.
Good
Morning,
morning.
Prof, and morning, my fellow hand. Yes, the old piece is now a new piece because of this platform. I'm so humbled because it has shaped me. Really, Prof, thank you so much. Prof, we thank you so much for this really dedication, a painless dedication. We thank you so much. And Chair, thank you for always waking me up. Thank you so much. Over to you, dear.
Welcome, my sister. Let's just hear from Fred. Oh, Samuel, you're on now. Samuel, you can say hi.
Yes, Joseph. Yeah, thank you very much. A very good morning to you all. I'm really happy to be part of this forum. I have to admit that I've remained the same. Yeah, there's a lot of value addition. Thank you very much. Over to you, Joseph.
Thank you very much, and certainly that's a very good report. And I thought that Prof would hear from the participants themselves that they really appreciate the work that he is doing. And we should be starting soon. But before we do that, there is this friend who had gotten lost for some time, and she's back. Madam Irene Ayo, can you say hi to us this morning?
Yes, good morning. I'm called Irene Ayo Onwa. I'm a strong alumni of MOOPS. I've been there for almost 10 years and a former staff. And my better PhD journey is I've been, that's why you see me on and off. I started from June. I was seeking for admission from Makerere. And when I submitted my concept paper, they told me to resubmit. So that's what I'm working on. And joining has really helped me, has guided me a lot. And I think there's some progress.
Wow. That is certainly very good report, very good feedback.
Yeah, I'm getting a lot of guidance and I'm moving. Hopefully I'll be in the right track.
No, you will be certainly. When you're here, we have people to shape us, we have people to help us. So certainly there is no doubt about that.
Yeah, and I would like also to take this opportunity to thank all the erudites in this forum, Professor Ntai, all the seniors, including yourself, and everyone here. I'm happy to be part of this erudites.
Wow.
The scholars.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you very much. And so we are many now, and I may not be able to really get the feedback from everyone, but just to know that we appreciate you being part of this. I had just seen Professor Rubia. She had logged in, but I think somehow her network is disturbing. But I just want to hope that She's somewhere listening. She may be hiding somewhere listening. And many other professors who are on. Thank you. You can hear from the students themselves. They appreciate the work you're doing. We really want to thank you. This morning, we'd like to just follow up from what we had last week. How do we write manuscripts that can be published? I had the discussion with a friend from a university, some university in Kenya, I think Nairobi University, and he was telling me good news that for him, it's actually done with this thesis, and now he is trying to see how he can extract papers for publishing from the thesis. And one of the things that we had a serious discussion on is, does it mean that every paper that you must extract from your thesis, does it mean that you must depend on the same background that you have in the thesis? And so we had a lot of discussion, and so I said, okay, maybe we go back to follow up with the video we had, and then we'll be able to see whether you really need to have similar, introduction on all the 3 or 4 papers you're going to extract from your thesis. So I just decided to go to look for some clip that could help us to that end. And I found something here that I want to share with all of us this morning. It's just a continuation of what we heard last week. And I hope that it will surely, we will be able to pick a leaf from what we are going to listen and watch. So the idea is, how do I extract manuscripts from my thesis? But also in there, as we'll be watching and listening, this presenter tries also to take us through step by step how we still come up with manuscripts. So this would be something for us to pick a leaf from as we continue moving this journey. So I want to welcome you to this screen, watch and listen, and see if we can pick a leaf or two. If there's some few minutes left, then we'll be able to share also your experiences and how you've been able to maneuver. I know there are a number of people here who are published widely, and they may also be able to share with us their experiences. So welcome, and please don't sleep, just watch, and make sure sleep does not steal you away from the class.
Today, we will be discussing about a step-by-step guide to writing a quality manuscript. We are expecting to have several parts, so this is part 1. All right, move forward. I would like to show you something. Take a look at this. Here we can see that a pencil, scrambled paper, and a diary. And this is very, very familiar thing. All of us, we have this experience that we would like to write something, but finally it becomes like this because we didn't know the direction of writing, or perhaps the thing we would like to write, it does not really reflect inside our writing. So this is a common phenomenon for all of us somehow, that we may have to face some difficulties in writing that if we don't know or it is not familiar with it. Okay, so the question arises, if we would like to write something like step by step to write the manuscript, the quality manuscript. So how to do it? First of all, we need to know the direction, right? To know that, we have the first question in our mind that where to target your manuscript. That means, where are the possibilities that we can publish our manuscript? We have many options. We have journals, we have conferences, we have books, and we can even write chapters. Let's say conferences. Conferences are actually a sort of stepping stone to publish into the journal. By participating in the conferences, sometimes they have ranked or indexed conferences like Scopus indexed conferences. By participating in those conferences, we can modify our existing papers. We call it conference proceeding. And after modification, because in a conference, this is an opportunity for us to have some of the ideas, feedback, comments to improve our existing proceeding, existing paper, existing manuscript. And after accommodating all of those valuable comments and feedback, we can improve our paper and we can target to a good journal. Same goes to the book chapters, or sometime the book. Yes, they sometimes offer for the book authorship or even editorship. We're not going to discuss those sort of things today. Maybe some other forum, if we have the opportunity to discuss together, we can discuss in detail. But today, we'd like to put emphasis on journals, focusing on quality Scopus papers. To move forward, I would like to emphasize on another part. It's called a good journal or conference or book and even book chapter. They tend to have rigorous review process and long-term review. Okay. Yes, in terms of timing, we cannot say that sometime we need to have like 1 month or 6 months or 1 year. It depends on many factors, but usually we have to calculate. It may take a little bit longer time than expected. How a manuscript is different than your thesis. This part is very important. I'm going to show you one table. This is only an idea. I know many of you know about it, but those who are still wondering that how to write a manuscript from the thesis or part of a thesis, let us discuss a little bit of differences between these two things, thesis and manuscript. As you show in the slide, thesis is something like academic requirement to get PhD, to get masters, all right? But manuscript, yes, this is also an academic requirement, but directly not associated with the university, but university's requirement is to publish a certain number of papers. So this should meet the requirement or standard of the journal. So this is slightly different. If you have a good thesis, if you have a good supervisory committee, you get the feedback, and you are motivated enough to do it perfectly, I don't think so. This will be a problem, especially how to meet the university requirement, at the same time, the output to publish to a journal. Second one, reviewed as selected committee members, which is called your supervisory committee. They will be focusing on your work, especially thesis or research. However, another committee, we call it editorial board and blind reviewer, they are for manuscript, to check the standard of your manuscript. Number third, called chapters. Yes, please take note. This is a common error. This error quite often we observe in your journal, your drafted manuscript, okay? Even though in the thesis, we name them as chapter 1 is introduction, chapter 2 is literature review, chapter 3 research methodology, and so on. However, in manuscript, we never use chapter, we use sections. So please take note, do not ever use the word called chapter inside your manuscript. All right? So this is a silly mistake actually if we do so. Sometimes what happens is we copy from our thesis certain part, and maybe we should rephrase those, but somehow we overlook the word called chapter. So if your manuscript consists of this word called chapter, definitely you're going to get a comment from the reviewers committee. All right. Number 4, we know that our thesis is lengthy and there is no word limit, but still for your information, thesis in PhD standard, we expect something like 200 to 300 pages. Chapter 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, if you are from business management, HR, finance, economy, it is something like 200 to 300 pages. But manuscript, there is a word limit. Journal to journal, they limit the words. Sometimes they ask for 5,000 words. Sometimes they're okay with 7,000 words. Sometimes they say at least 4,000 words. Or even sometimes they can say like this, maximum 8,000 words. So we have to deal with the word limitation. All right. I will discuss later on in the slide that how this word limit we can plan correctly. Another one is called table of contents. Please take note, in thesis, yes, we have table of contents. That day we received one of the drafted manuscript that student, he or she, wanted to submit to a journal, and surprisingly, we supervisory committee that day found that that student put table of contents inside the manuscript, which is quite unlikely. Okay, table of contents we do not put inside our manuscript. Please take note. Rather, we format accordingly to intended journal where we're going to submit for the publication. Next one is called lengthy research literature. Yes, we know that. We will discuss later on. And all of us, we know literature review chapter for the thesis. This is an extensive chapter where we write empirical review and theoretical review, starting from the definitions, starting from the relationships, starting from the relationships between variables. So we write in detail. Sometime we need to refer some of the articles or journals or the citations that may not directly help our argument, but that is an opening of our establishing of the platform. However, please take note, manuscript, we don't do that. We write precise literature. This is not extensive. You know why? Because there is something called word limit, right? So for that perspective, what do? We keep very precise and targeted citations that can create our argument. Other than that, we have description and copies of the tools of the use for the thesis, but manuscript, I think it is understood by now, we only use the essential information. Leading to this, the last one called all findings are presented inside the thesis. However, for the manuscript, only selected findings are presented. Let me give an example. Those who have used SPSS or MOS or PLS, you see, in the thesis, we start from CFA, designing one by one, amend one by one, in detail we write, until measurement model and structural model. So we present every single detail that what we have done. However, for the manuscript, we don't do so. We may need to present directly a measurement model and a structural model, or sometime we may not present those sort of things. Instead, what we do, we just present the numbers or the values like RMACA, CFI, GFI, AGFI, NFI, those sort of things. So only selected findings we present inside our manuscript, and we have to know what are those. Not everything is equally important for the manuscript. Okay, now, turning thesis to a journal, we may discuss several things here. First of all, we have to identify the appropriate target journal. There are many cases it happens. Failing to target an appropriate journal, they may ask you for a desk rejection. So this is very important for us to identify which journal will be appropriate for our manuscript. Secondly, shorten the length of your thesis. Many people, they think like shorten the length of the thesis is a kind of manuscript, quality manuscript. Yes, somehow yes, but make sure that only shortening the length does not come up with a good output called a quality journal. Okay, so we have to be very, very careful that how to short the length of our thesis to change into the article, quality article. Sometimes we have to come up with several ideas, like we can treat our thesis as a separate work. Okay, yes, this is something like raw material for your article, but they are not exactly the same thing that you are giving an output called journal article or manuscript. Then yes, we need to paraphrase and express the same ideas but in different way. Please take note, we have to paraphrase somehow. We cannot simply copy paste our thesis because the expression is different. So we have to paraphrase and express, yes, the same ideas but in different ways. Sometimes we have to do a repurposive part, or we have to take a certain part from the thesis, and that certain part can express as a complete manuscript. But at the same time, we have to highlight the key point of what our reader understand from the writing, whether it is compatible enough. All right. So that's how we can pay attention while writing a journal article or quality manuscript. Third one is called reformat the introduction as an abstract. We can do that. Later slide, we will discuss in detail, followed by modify the introduction. Okay, now I would like to discuss something here. Number 4, it is called modifying the introduction. In our thesis, introduction chapter, we have many things, many subsections. We have background of the study, we have problem statements, then we have research objectives and questions, we have significance of the study, a lot of things. We have to take all of those ideas, we have to filter those, and we have to write maximum 1 page. Maximum 1 page that consists of background, consists of problem statements. We have to be really very smart that how can we take the entire idea and modify as an introduction section inside our journal article. In the thesis, we should do objectives like objective 1, objective 2, objective 3, like this. We call it specific objectives. Rather, we should put a general objective in 1 sentence, not only in 1 sentence, but we can put it as the main aim of the research. Next one called tighten the method sections. This is very important. We need to know how to write the research methodology section inside our journal article, but we call it materials and methods sometime. Okay, this part we need to know how to keep the method section very precise, and there is no need for an extensive discussion about the research approach. We don't have to go research paradigm, research approach, this and that. No, we have to go straight away that how the previously published paper, at least 3 to 5, from the targeted journal examples, we can refer to their journal, that I mean where we are targeting to submit. We can refer to their journal, we can get an idea that how they prefer this section to be written. This is the smartest way that we can modify our materials and method or research methodology section inside our manuscript. Next one, we call it report the main findings in result. In this case, again, I repeat, please present the findings relevant to the aim or research general objective that you have presented. Do not simply present extensive things which are not needed, because we have word limitation here. So we have to pick up very carefully, and we have to know if we conduct an exploratory analysis, we have to provide the concise statements of the findings. So we need to present only the precise and concise things of the findings. And we need to ensure the discussion is clear and concise. This is very important. Many of us, we simply write the discussion section without understanding. But we should know that many of the journals, they prefer an outcome, which is called findings, that can match with our proposed solution of the problem statement of the study. So we have to know about that. All right. So that is how we can ensure the discussion is clear and concise. And finally, what we can say, we can limit the number of references. This limit the number of references is very important because this is a manuscript. Yes, in the thesis, we can present in detail 200, 300 references, but here we don't have that opportunity. So we have to be very focused and efficient how to limit the number of references. In this part, please pay attention on this. You can take the references from the journals, their recent publications related to your work. Take those references. That's how we can play the trick and make the journal's editorial board or reviewers happy. So this is another technique that how we can limit the number of references, but it is efficient. Now, the types of journals or type of journal articles. Let me explain this part. Many of us, we are still confused that what are those. First one is called original research. This original research is basically, this is the most common type research or journal manuscript used to publish for full report of the data. This is a form of research that consists all 5 sections with your findings as well. All right. The paper that we used to read from Emerald or other database, Scopus or ISI, nowadays we call it no longer ISI, we call it Web of Science or ABDC journals or other standard. Usually they are original research, that means a complete research, but this is not everything. Beside that, we can publish this as well, which is called short report or letters. Short report or letters, they basically communicate the brief report of the data from original research that editors believe will be interesting to many researchers, and that will likely be something like COVID-19, for example. This is a hot topic, a burning issue right now. If we have some of the data, recent trend or something, even by utilizing that part, we can even publish the research article. We don't have to come all the things. You see, you know why? Some issues, I can tell you, if you check last couple of months ago, let's say in February or March, you can find a lot of short reports or later sort of articles in the internet, and most of them have written COVID-19 issue. And it was a common channel for a researcher to publish quite easily without any hassle if he used to write COVID-19 issue a couple of months back. But now, yes, over the time, people are getting more data, so it is a little difficult, but still it is comparatively easy if you take this sort of analysis, sort of data. Okay. The third one called review article. You can write also a review article if you are at the initial stage of your research, especially when you are doing literature review section. Writing chapter 2, during that time, you can do a publication. We call it review article. And review article basically is a kind of things that often researchers, they begin their background of their work or articles or collections of the work. So the variable identifications, the relationships between and among variables. During that stage, we read a lot of papers, lot of articles from the internet or any other sources. Utilizing that, you can do a meta-analysis article, which is called review article. Those who are still confused about review article, you can refer to any research methodology book. You can know that what are those. But this is a very good opportunity for those who are at the literature review stage in chapter 2 of your thesis. Doing so, you can kill two birds in one stone. So doing literature review, at the same time you are coming up with a review article, okay, and you can publish even to a Scopus journal of this review sort of article. Next one is called case study. Yes, case study may not be suitable for those who are intending to continue with quantitative research. No, this is only for qualitative research. But still, those who are doing literature review part, maybe you are doing something called focus group discussion to validating your variables. You can take this opportunity and you can turn your paper to a case study paper. Case study paper also is quite interesting these days. Same goes to the last one called methodologies or method-based paper. You may be wondering that how come only on methodologies or method-based can be published. Yes, it can be published. That means when you are developing your chapter 3, even before going to proposal defense, just like review article, chapter 2, methodology, chapter 3, when you are doing it, at the same time, you can develop that. You can develop these sort of articles that present a new experimental method, test, or maybe procedures. So you can even publish this part if your research is interesting, those who are from IT, simulation, or maybe engineering or science. This kind of paper you can target, and it is quite easy to publish. Not only that, it actually provides the new researchers ideas that how the real work can be done, and eventually you can come up with an original article. Now, structuring the manuscript. This part, remember this, a well-structured article helps reader finds the information as it is written in the sticky note. So actually, it depends on the argument, how you communicate, and how an author present their work. And a structured article actually gives a logical flow of the content. This will give a map, an idea, a structure that how to proceed. Just like the next slide, structure of a research paper. I think we have presented before, but again, we treat this is another forum, new forum, just to give you an idea that how we can structurize of a research paper, like title, how many words, abstract, how many words. So these are the ideas we can proceed with a good structure of our article or quality manuscript that you are talking for it. Now, titles, abstract, and paper. Mind it, title is very, very important. As you see in the slide, everybody expects it will be precise, accurate, and something called discoverable, something exciting, something engaging, right? But most of the cases, our article may get rejected due to the things that it is shown in right-hand side. And another thing I would like to say, title basically draws the structure of an abstract, and abstract eventually come up with the paper. You may hear at many conferences, they ask for an abstract first, instead of asking for the full paper. Once abstract is accepted, then they require for the full paper. You know why? Because abstract basically shows the quality of your work, and it draws the line of your paper. So writing a title and writing the abstract correctly is very, very important. Just now I'm going to show you this one. The title, as I told you, the title of your manuscript is usually the first introduction that attracts who you are and what you are talking about. Who you are means your research. All right. So second one, therefore, we have to be very much cautious that we can grab the attention, and this attention of the reader, we can grab it accurately. How to do that? We have to rely on searching. Similar thing, let's say job satisfaction, employee engagement, these sort of things, we can pay attention on other search engine that we can find a similar work, so that we can find out the trained, research trained, or the recent trained of the research. We can have the idea that what is the gap, because publishable work should be something like there should be a gap and there is a need. All of us, we know about that. And it usually, because usually they search for the database through and other things, authors list, yes, I think this is understood. The next one is called, it is important, yes, we have discussed about that. Now, title of the manuscript, make sure that it conveys the main topic of the study. Again, I would like to remind you, title and topic, they are not the same thing. Even though we use them interchangeably, but in actual fact, the topic and title, they are not the same thing. Topic is basically a little broader concept, and title is exact thing that you are doing, which is written on top of your manuscript. Please highlight the importance of research. This is very important, you know, because editorial board, before passing it to the reviewers, they will be checking these things, that whether the title of the manuscript highlights the important factors or not. So we have to be very concise. That can attract readers. So I'm not going to read from the slide. We already have discussed and we know about that, but I'm going to show you at a glance of this. You see left hand side, this is an example of International Journal of Data and Network Science. This is the journal, and conceptualizing the effects of transfer pricing law on transfer pricing decision making of FDI enterprises in Vietnam. So this is the research title, and followed by the authors and affiliation. So here, if you take a look at right hand side, there are several things like title. We can use 3W method. That means what, who, and where. What means the focus area of this research. What is the focus area? And who means who are suffering into this? Are they people? Are they group? Are they firm? Is it individual? Is it an industry or sector? And where means we can see that it's Vietnam. So if you have these components called 3W components in your title, usually we consider this is a good research title, followed by author's name and affiliation, and abstract we have discussed, and keyword we know what are those. Just like this abstract, those are the things usually we discuss in the abstract. We talk about a little bit of background that reflects on the purpose of summarizing the research. Then we discuss about methods, we discuss about result, we discuss about conclusion. And conclusion basically discuss about originality, contributions, limitations. Those all we consider under conclusion. And after writing this, right hand side, if you see that structured versus unstructured abstracts. Just give an example. Those who have experience in Emerald article, they usually follow the structured abstract. Just like we have shown here in the slide, the breakdowns are the background, method, result, conclusion. So those are the breakdown. We have to break it down like this, just like Emerald articles. But sometimes they require an unstructured abstract. So if it is unstructured abstract, keeping the same components, but we have to write in single paragraph. We call it unstructured abstract, but still, please take note, we still talk about background, method, result, and conclusion, but it is continuous writing. Either structured or unstructured, it has to be similar. The contents have to be similar, okay? So some journal, they want structured, some unstructured. I would say if we would like to write an abstract, a good abstract, start with structured first, because it will give you the mapping, the ideas that how it should be written. In case, if we see that the targeted journal, they require an unstructured abstract, we can simply just take out those breakdowns. So it is easy. I would say, please structure abstract, please start with a structured abstract. Now, introduction. Take a look at this. Introduction, maximum 3 to 4 paragraphs and not more than 1,000 words. And make sure that within 100 to 200 words to introduce your topic, the first one, and followed by problem statement. After that, last paragraph, it should be the aim of the study, of the general objective, okay? And it should provide the readers, these are the things, but most, you can ask yourself whether it is well balanced, whether it is current, and whether it is relevant. So that's how we can write a good introduction section. Again, I repeat, maximum 3 to 4 paragraphs, not more than 1,000 words. Only first 100 to 200 words you can write, introduce yourself, which is called background of the study. but followed by should be the problem statements, and last paragraph should be the general objective and aim. Move on to literature review. We know this. Literature review we can divide in terms of empirical and theoretical part. But if it is our deductive research, all of the journals, they ask for a strong theoretical backup. Many cases it happened, we don't have a strong theoretical backup and they reject our paper. So remember, this one part is very important. Do not copy and paste with no systematic presentation and logical coherence. Please do not copy paste from your thesis. Do not do so, because we understand that what is the requirement of a journal, which is very, very different than our thesis. We know that interpretations and all materials. So other thing, again, I'm not going to read from the slide, but what I can do is this part is very important. At the same time, we have to be very smart. Only the logical flow, only the necessary sections, necessary materials and contents should be presented under this section. Now, materials and method, sometimes we call it methodology. Okay, this part, we have to describe population and location. We have to describe about study design and sampling method. These two parts are very important. Other than that, research paradigm, research approach, those are the things we may skip inside our paper. But we have to provide the list of the questionnaires for this study and from where it is adopted or adapted or developed. Sometimes journals, they ask for it. So take a preparation in case they ask, we may have to provide this. One more technical part, please listen this part very carefully. If you present EFA, exploratory factor analysis, if you present the pattern matrix or the rotated component matrix table, then you may not have to present or provide the questionnaire. You know why? Because in that part in EFA, we somehow give the ideas of the instrument. But if you do not present EFA, especially pattern matrix table or rotated component matrix table, then you need to provide this in your article. And we have to write the validation purpose, how the validation has been made, and other part as well, especially the materials and method part. Again, I'm not going to read from the slide, but somehow we understand this part. You see the last one called any measurements that were taken to ensure the safety of the subject should also be reported. Many cases in our thesis also, many students, they don't do so. Please provide this, because nowadays we're asking for the students to do ethical form. So ethics form, by doing so, you can do that. But for the article, you don't have to do ethics form. But they may ask for additional consent form or something, we may have to sign. Now, data analysis and findings. Many of us, we only present without understanding that how the data should be presented. This part, please take note. We have several stages here. First one called analysis. Yes, we do analysis by software. After doing analysis, we get numbers or values, the tables output that we get. After that, we have to do an interpretation of those values. What does it mean by Cronbach alpha 0.76, for example? And many of us, by doing so, we feel like that's it. No, this is not all about that. After analysis, we need to do numbers or values, and then we have to do interpretation. After interpretation, we need to do what? We need to do discussion. And finally, we have to come up with justifications. So these are the steps. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These are 5 steps for your quality manuscript. And of course, for your thesis. Many of us, we only do until stage number 3, which is called interpretation. But we don't discuss that how it works for our research. And we don't justify sometime. No, we have to do justification. That who are the people, past researcher, who has come up with these findings. These findings are in line with who are the people. So these are the 5 stages. If we do so, our analysis part or findings or result part, then there should not be any question for that. Now, discussions and conclusion. This is another part we may not discuss all the time. So I would like to discuss it today. after analysis part, when it comes to conclusion, especially discussion and conclusion part, we should use the modal verb in the discussion. So the modal verb means we have to use the words like may, might, could, can, should, ought to, need to, have to, must, these sort of things. Many of us, we don't know, even though this is a simple rule, but we should practice this inside discussion and conclusion section, especially if you do hypothesis testing. Because if you do hypothesis testing, the things which is found, it is proven, yes, but proven based upon what? It is proven based upon the data that you had, and it is not everything. All right, so we have to know about this, that how this one can be written. Yes, we can provide the suggestions, but doesn't mean that it is confirmed. So we can use may, might, those sort of modal verbs. Now, additional concept. This part is very important, even for our thesis, but I'm talking from article perspective, manuscript perspective. Tables, figures, they are very important, very, very important for our publication. We have to know how to categorize tables. At the same time, we have to know how we can categorize the figures. Tables and figures, they're very important. In your demographic table, for example, male, female, this is like gender, education, or other thing. Many people, they put it separately in their thesis. Yes, in certain extent, it is acceptable, but when it comes to the article, it is not acceptable. So you have to merge all those information into one table. Or sometimes they don't need table. You have to explain only verbally. Same goes to figure. Do not present all the output figures, but you need to know which output figures we have to present. Even maps. Those who are doing IT research, maybe you have to use sometimes the map, the locational map and everything, just like Google Map. Please use good resolution and DPI, good quality of the image. Then we have, okay, we discussed about images already. Now data plots, we discussed about that, and maps, just now we have discussed about the maps. So those are additional concern. And we have to remember, a perfect article always brings together the two key elements, theory and practicality, with contributions, implications, and knowledge creation. But make sure that even though this is contribution, we have to write managerial contribution. Sometimes we have to come up with commercialization. It depends on our research. Even though commercialization is not a part of our thesis maybe, but if you would like to publish our journal, we must write commercialization if it is technology based, how you'd like to marketize the things. With this, I'd like to say thank you very much. Today we will be discussing about.
Right. Thank you, and welcome back from watching that very quite long clip. I must say that some of these things really sound very abstract. Many of us who are just beginning our journey, our study, and yet we have an option because it's part of what we have decided to go for. So we really have an option to learn a number of these things. And yet at the same time, you find that there are a number of us here who have published a number of articles already. So this could be probably a reminder to them. And I also want to think that outside what these professors presented, many of us already are very familiar with this process, and you've done publishing. So two things I would like to really hear from the students community this morning. One is, if there's anything you have picked from this thing today. Then two, if you have something different from what has been shared from the the clip, and then maybe lastly, can someone share with us your experience in publishing? I have heard people say that I sent my article in January 2020, and now this is November 2022, and it's not yet published. That is complaint number one. I've had others say, for me, I've sent my paper, the feedback came, and it was just outright reject. Others, my paper went, they have recommended transfer. And maybe that explains why the professor here was emphasizing that which journal do you target. If you're doing something related to ICT, and probably you're targeting a journal which is maybe dealing with something else, maybe marketing, maybe something else different from what you're doing. So basically they may transfer your article, something like that. So I want to really hear experience like that. But also if there's anything you think that for you have learned something this morning, that would be very good. I'll be very excited to see someone sharing with us. So the floor is open for us. When I look at here, I have Charles, your hand is up. Kindly unmute and speak to us.
Thank you very much, Joseph, and fellow students who have been able to log in this early morning. Thank you for the clip. You know, when you shared the clip, I remember, I recalled that one of my first papers, I extracted it from my master's thesis. So what I did was I went to ResearchGate and I pulled it up. I submitted it in the Electronic Journal of Information Systems in Developing Countries then, and I think it's one of my papers with the fair reads, because I'm just checking here. I'm seeing 2,650 reads and over 29 citations. So it was a good reminder. I said, oh, I pulled it. So I was just trying to cross-check what the professor was talking about, and what happened then when when I extracted this paper. And I think it's spot on. Of course, at the beginning is talking more about how to convert, and specifically is talking about narrowing, you know, like extracting, but reducing is so more about reducing the content. And really, that is when I compare this paper now that I'm seeing here with the manuscript itself. It's really a lot, because the manuscript was over 166 papers. Now, when I look at the paper here, it's less than 20, and the different sections where I was talking about converting the background, introduction, and the different sections. It is really spot on, and I think it is something that many of us can actually do, because by then, that was some time back, my master's, and it was possible for me then. So I think it's something that we can learn from, and we can all take advantage of. Maybe just my quick experience on this. It's true, it's doable, and I have actual evidence here. Thank you very much.
Wow. Thank you very much, Charles. In fact, it's if people are crying that I don't know where to start from, Charles has an idea. You can actually work on your proposal. Go back and look at. You go back and look at your master's thesis, and try to narrow it down and extract a paper and begin to join the publishing journey. At least I'm sure everybody here, you did some, you wrote a thesis at least at master's level. So there is a good place to start from. I know our time is spent. We already into the next session by 1 minute. But I don't know. I don't know why I think there should be one more person who wants to say something. What I see from here, I think people are requesting for the video. Certainly, I'll upload the video here. Again, I want to thank you very much, all of you who have managed to attend the student session.
Joseph, before you...
Okay, thank you. Prof, kindly go on.
Thank you, Joseph. There's a question you posed at the beginning before you showed us the video. Unfortunately, that question is not yet answered. Possibly it will be answered next time, next week, if there is that opportunity of answering it. The question was, you had a discussion with a colleague of yours, and he was asking you that if you're going to pull a paper from your dissertation, do you use the same data set? I mean, if you're going to write papers, right, and even writing chapters, maybe in a thesis, somebody's thesis, do you use the same data set right from the beginning to the end, or you have different data sets, and each data set will respond to a particular research hypothesis or objective and so forth? I think that was lost because I know there is that practice too. So I think we need to attend to it, especially for people who come from the economics background. If you look at the way the theses are written, you find that for objective one or probably some hypothesis, they are using different data sets from the beginning to the end, meaning that you cannot have the same background, you cannot have the same literature review and things like that. In other words, they are written in terms in form of papers. Every chapter is more or less a complete paper and so forth. Maybe these are things that we shall discuss later on. Joseph, over to you.
Thank you very much, Prof. Yes, and I think with your permission, we will line up experts who will try to help us address, put in more flesh on what you have said. And indeed, it is something that is disturbing, whether I can have different data sets and they have different everything, or I can just have one data set and respond to everything. So it's quite a disturbing issue, and Prof, I know you have a lot of information to that regard. I believe I will be able to have some discussion on that, and then we'll be able to have some answers. A number of students, not actually one person from Nairobi, a number of students have actually been asking something in relation to that. Then also number two, there are still queries. Students are still wondering whether it is true that, I don't know how I can frame it, but I think I need to put some of those, I need to have a clear discussion with the number of students, then I'll just write those concerns down, because I cannot finish them now. I'll just have those concerns down, then we'll have a discussion on them, and we'll be able to see how we can address those issues. For now, ladies and gentlemen, I am overshooting and I seem to be going beyond our time, and kindly forgive us for taking longer than expected. At this very point, allow me invite Professor Michael Okoche. Should be able to take us to the next session. Thank you very much. Over to you, Prof.
Morning. Morning. I hope Joseph, I'm clear.
Yes, you
Joseph,
are. You're clear, Prof.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much for always making the morning session very interesting. And for some people who join in later, I think there's a lot of learning we normally gain in the early session. And I also want to thank the leaders of the early morning session for the innovativeness of getting very interesting videos, and especially as a result of identifying critical needs by the student community and all the members in the platform. Again, I want to begin by appreciating our mentor, Professor Joseph Ntai. Professor, thank you so much for mentoring us and not getting tired of making sure that we grow. I think this platform brings in together people of different orientations, different backgrounds, different and very interesting. So really learning takes place every minute. Every minute you're in this platform, you learn something. I also want to thank Professor Sam Adaramola. Professor Sam, thank you. I also want to thank Dr. Gideon Nkuzinza, Dr. Ibrahim Senze, and Dr. Hassan Bashir. I've also seen Dr. Ahmad Walgim has logged in. Dear members in the morning call, actually, I appreciate all of us for logging in. And like I said, that it really makes learning very interesting. For some more of you and me who are involved in, you can know that it can be very boring to teach one person or be in a class of one, not much learning takes place. So we are continuing with our series, and last week we had a very interesting discussion about moderation, and our presenter is in the house already. And, given the fact that we need to continue, I think for the first bit of the discussion, I will moderate, and then Dr. Ahmad will be able to continue the moderation. So at this juncture, allow me about our presenter, our very own Dr. Gideon Zinza. We appreciate you, and I really believe a lot of learning taking place. So many people have called me, telling me about how the previous sessions have been really very enlightening. So Dr. Gideon, you can share the screen and then take us through the presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning to you all. I'm glad again to have another chance to share some of the few insights. And I believe we shall all benefit as we keep on sharing again. I hope, Chair, you are hearing me before I proceed.
Yeah, loud and clear.
Okay, thank you very much. I know the topic we are handling is very interesting, especially when it comes to theory building and theory testing. Although I also, again, emphasize that this current critical debate, especially on when you are able to do mediation testing, when you're able to do moderation testing, when you're going to do moderated mediation testing. And as scholars on this call, I think it's important to keep on questioning where we would be able to contribute to existing body of knowledge. And I think the current emphasis is on moderated mediation, as well as moderation and mediation testing in the theory. I know most scholars have concentrated on running some models without paying attention to certain effects in the path modeling. And I think for me, that is the emphasis I have to put as we come to almost the end of what I'm supposed to share. But I know there's a lot to learn. I know I've concentrated on the use of SPSS software. Again, as we continue, I want us to appreciate that there are very many softwares you can use when you're running moderation or mediation testing. Some of these softwares, we choose them depending on our area of specialty. There are those softwares that require some bit of programming, like R. If you come from mathematics background, it would be good for you to enjoy the use of R. Others, they are good at using starter. If you are good at using the commands, still you can get those coefficients, which you can still use to test for this moderation and mediation. Why do I really want us to use this SPSS, which has process macro installed? Is that I know most people come from social science and other related disciplines. And I think it would be good to use a software that is user-friendly, because it can still give you the same tests. I know one of the reasons that most people prefer using this is the process of running the models is much easier. Otherwise, I would have used the other softwares like Amos, like Smart Peres, with the justification. And I think the other point to pick is that every software you use, you must justify why it is the most appropriate. So the other one, that there are no extra, sometimes there are no complications in most cases. Once you use this software, which has already inbuilt models, that becomes much easier to use. And it also considers multi-categorical dummy coding, which actually now that becomes added advantage in case in your theorization you have those multiple categorical variables. I think that could help. Others is like you want to probe, for example, the interactions. You remember when you used Johnson's Neyman's points, which gives us when do we likely to have, for example, the moderation. When does the moderation effect stop? I remember we did that, and that becomes that advantage. And the other one is that at times it also considers relatively small sample size, relatively small, at least when you have above 30, you are in 100. And like Amos, which requires 200 observations as your sample size. If you have above 200 as your observation, then you have to use Amos as you do structured fusion modeling. Now, but of course, as we use this spaces which has the process macro, we must also know its weakness, its flaws. One of them is that you cannot have a measurement model. You can only do exploratory if you want it. You can do exploratory analysis, but you can't have the measurement model. And in addition, whereas for SEM, structured fusion modeling, when you're using, for example, Smart Pairs or Amos, you can run both measurement model and structured fusion model. Now, I know this could sound to be new terminologies, but I think if you reflect on your work, you will discover that you have your questionnaire, which is looking at different variables and the measurement items. So at times we want to see whether those measurement models can really theoretically, those measures can be theoretically, can theoretically explain that variable. And you can look at it in terms of validity and reliability as well. I think it's important to know that, again, if you want to learn modification indices, which for Amos, you can be able to do that. In spaces, you don't do that. There are those fit indices which you have to look at. I don't want to go that way, since, but I think you need to bring out those justifications. There are a number of fit indices. Takaro's fit indices. You can even look at Ramsey and see the cutoff points. All those things must be considered in case you are interested to look at that. Then as you run the model, as you run the mediation, moderation, then you could prefer to use the Amos. However, I want also to say that sometimes it's hard to get to those large samples. One, there are very many measurement errors that we can have, unlike when you're using process macro spaces. So I think even building a model, it's a little bit time consuming. When you are building a model, looking at how to fit a model using the Amos, it takes some time because you keep looking at modification indices, seeing what you can change, what you can add, what you can move until you see the model is fitting. Now, these are some of the things that at times you have to consider before you choose the software. But again, I also want to add that currently there is also another choice that most people prefer, again, using Smart Pairs on assumption that it considers both parametric and non-parametric assumptions. So in a situation where you have the non-parametric assumptions met, because you have maybe very small sample, and Smart Pairs considers less than, actually from 12 observation and above. So I think that also is some of these considerations you should consider. So at analysis stage, as we look at these tests you can carry out, it is important that in the methodology section, you provide clear justification of why you are using certain software and why you are able to carry out some statistical tests that allow you to answer specific objective, which are in the line of mediation, moderation, moderated mediation. So basically, that's what I can add as the restart of today's topic. And today's topic is not new. If you are looking at moderated mediation, that means you're looking at a situation where you find mediation alone may not be able to explain the context, may not be able to give you what you wanted actually to answer, your central argument in which you have. You discover that the central argument gives you the room to come up with specific objectives. And one of the specific objectives could be maybe to do a moderation testing or a mediation testing. In addition, given your theoretical underpinnings, your theoretical support, you may actually find the theories that you are using require moderation, mediation testing, all of them combined. And perhaps you are saying, yes, you can do a mediation testing by looking at the indirect effect and direct effect, but you realize that this can be true under certain conditions. If it can be true under certain conditions, your mediation can exist under certain conditions in the presence of certain variable. Then that's when you think about moderated mediation. And that's why we even call it conditional indirect effects. That you may come up with a model and you discover that this mediation model may not actually provide the theoretical and practical explanation of what you are studying when you have not considered a certain moderator. And I think this is very, very important as we proceed. It's important to know why and when do we do moderated mediation testing. Of course, I want to say that as I have emphasized, that is just moderated mediation is your concern that you have established that mediation exists. But when mediation exists, you discover that somewhere, somehow, for example, between the independent variable and the mediator, you can introduce a variable and see whether there will be change in the direction of the relationship between the predictor and mediator. Or you can even look at maybe between the mediator and the dependent variable or the response variable or outcome variable. You find that when you introduce the modulator, that relationship changes, meaning that the indirect effect will also change, not be the same. So at times you need to now think about that as you are building a theory, as you're testing your theory. Now, of course, I want also to say that currently, I think last time one of the members justified why at times important also to do moderated mediation. he was trying to use the empirical gap, that sometimes when you review literature, you find that most of the things are being done, but what's left out be done, and yet practically it is required, is maybe the moderated mediation. I think that is another justification. One, you look at it from the theoretical justification, why you need to do moderated mediation testing. Two, you also look at it from the empirical perspective, whether you can make a contribution if you realize that most studies have tended to ignore that. And yet, from the practice point of view, you do not be able to articulate the issue addressing unless you consider that moderated mediation. So again, the next is that also you are trying to answer certain questions. The questions of how, when, and why. Why the relationship exists. You remember when you are looking at the mediation testing, we said, why should you be able to look at mediation testing? That you have a mediator that is in between. For example, if you look at path modeling now, in between the dependent variable and the dependent variable, you introduce a mediator. What happens? What happens? You are trying to show why and how the relationship between the independent variable and dependent variable exists. I think for us not to divert our thoughts as we appreciate the presentation, the last time I was using an example of where we talk about the income, that income increases the level of spending, and the level of spending also leads to the level of satisfaction. Now, if you look at now the level of spending being a mediator, mediating the relationship between the level of income and the level of spending, here we are trying to use now the level of spending as a mediator to explain why that relationship exists. Because we have seen that not everybody who has income is satisfied. Could be because it is the way this person is spending. Partially, or even fully, there are people actually who spend almost everything they earn for them to be satisfied. But it can also, we can have another partial mediation. Why? You can find that it can partially explain that maybe when you earn, at times you are happy. You are happy because you spend part of it. Now you'll find that maybe if it is partial, maybe there could be another indirect effect that you never considered as you are theorizing, which that indirect effect could have been caused by something different, maybe the level of saving. So idea you can see when you introduce a mediator, you are trying to explain why and how the relationship between the predictor or the independent variable and the dependent variable exists. But then when you bring when does that happen? You are bringing in a condition. When does that happen? Yes, we know there's indirect effect. And that indirect effect, which is the mediation existing could be that there's a full mediation or partial mediation. But when does it occur? Is it when you introduce maybe a moderator in between the predictor variable and mediator? When you introduce it there, what happens? If it can change everything, then you cannot ignore that. You cannot ignore that, that moderator. So it depends again, as you look at the conceptualization. If you are using a conceptual model, it depends again how you are drawing the arrows. Those arrows mean a lot. If you don't go that way, then if you come from the natural science, then you can use mathematical models now. You can still use those mathematical equations still, because we can again replicate the conceptual model into the mathematical model. I think that's what I want to say. So there are three questions that terms majorly you want to answer. How, when, and why the relationship may exist between the constructs as per the theorization, as per your theorization. I've seen of recent that I think it can happen. You have a model and you have put something in the middle, and some saying you do not test for mediation. And sounds to be a simple question or a hard question. If some say you have not tested for mediation because seeing a value in the middle, if you never had a theoretical justification why you should test for mediation, why should you go ahead and test for mediation? And I think maybe that's why, if you look at Baron and Ken, came up with certain assumption that yes, must look at these assumptions and see whether they are fulfilled. If they are not fulfilled, then don't go ahead. That was his kind of thinking. But I think even us, as we try to be knowledge transformers, knowledge creators, I think it's important that we read widely and create a room for other scholars to listen to us. So I think this is why we should also try to emphasize. If somebody says, why didn't you test for mediation? Then you don't accept that, yes, I think I forgot test for mediation, when you don't have a scholarly argument. And I think it's important that. So I want also to say that as you look at moderated mediation, we are trying to enrich the theory in a scientific research. It's a good thing to go that way. And I've tried to look at, I've also attempted to look at most scholars that have done this. I think this is an area where we can take interest, and we make a strong contribution in our work, because we have relied mostly on these other multiple regression models without bringing in the aspect of moderated mediation. And yet the reality requires us to look at these things. When you read the theory and the practice, you look at the theory and practice, you may actually realize that you need moderated mediation. So I think it's important to read thoroughly, and we see how we can justify the need for it. I don't want to go into the critics of moderated mediation testing. Since I gave the preamble on what is happening, especially as far as the choice of statistical software is concerned. And maybe as a part of the emphasis, whereas I know the conventional models of moderated, of mediation and the moderation testing have been existing. I'm most aware that some scholars are trying to critique them, and they are bringing in a room for implicit mediation testing, which requires exploring. Why do we say exploring? That if you are looking at moderation, mediation testing, it means that you're looking at the effect. So you keep changing something, changing modulators, changing mediators, and see what happens. And so this is now where we need strongly provide strong justification of why you think you can do moderation, mediation, moderated mediation testing using the specified research design. Because the current argument is coming from those who use the experimental research. Experimental research, especially when you're using experimental research design, they believe that that is where you can understand the causal effects, where you can keep manipulating the modulators and mediators. They don't actually agree with some of the scholars who have built their measurement, mediation, moderation testing using Baron and Ken. They think that mediation, moderation cannot be actually looked at from the point of measurement alone. You can actually look at it from the procedure point of view, especially from the experimental point of view. Again, the debate is continuing, even when it comes again to the choice of the statistical computer package to use. It's also another area of concern that you pick, for example, you are using, for example, Amos. Then another is using Stata. Another is using eViews. Another is using other software. Then you must provide clear justification. There are cases where you need to do a simultaneous mediation, moderation, testing. And for you, you partial it out. When you partial it, you do it in a phased manner. For example, you are relying on the three variables until from the theoretical guidance which Baron and Kenney used, for example. It's important that, again, as you look at that section of data analysis, provide strong justification why you have chosen that statistical software, and again, why you intend to use different statistical tests for the mediation testing. I know this is where some people pick interest. You find that you have done your you have corrected your data, you have analyzed, you have gone ahead to complete your results, you have even gone ahead to discuss your results, you have even gone ahead to provide theoretical, practical, methodological implications. And then at that level, somebody comes and says, you do not use the right tool, statistical tool. You do not use the right statistical software. You do not use the relevant theory. The relevant theory do not bring the justification of why you're able to do this test. And I think this is something we must take interest into, because somebody can dismiss your findings because of the way you chose the methods, the way you chose the research design, and you are unable to really strongly justify that. I don't want to say that what we have been doing is wrong. No, I think what is important is that can we provide our strong argument? Why do you think you can use this approach. I think that's very, very important at PhD level. You need to provide strong argument. Every statement you make at PhD level counts. It counts. If you have said, I'm going to use cross-section research design, and then you are also going to do moderated mediation testing, please read widely. You know where the current debate is going, and you know why you think your study survives or stands at that point of argument. Otherwise, simply saying, I'm going to use this, I'm going to use this, I think may not help. And I've seen of recent, most people are going that way. And it may become a challenge if you don't provide those strong justification. So the critics, please, let's review the critics and know where the debate is going, such that we are not caught unaware as we are progressing in our academic career. I don't want to go these steps. Maybe we can do these things practically. I would like again to echo why I have picked much interest in process macro, not because of we have been relying mostly on smart PLS. Same doesn't mean that what I've been doing is wrong. But my interest is this because there's a current debate on it. Process macro, why? The other justification I gave, the inbuilt models, that here it's a bit user-friendly, and I think it's better to use something that is user-friendly with a clear justification, because it does bootstrapping. It relies on bootstrapping, which is more robust compared to Barnett-Kenney argument. So I feel like I think it's another area we should pick interest and use this software. Otherwise, for those use Starter, you are still fine, so long as you provide that strong support and the relevance of the choice of statistical test you are having. The same, because you can also do moderated mediation using EMOS. You can do that. So long as you find the conditions under which EMOS is used is duly or fully satisfied. So as we go into practical, I would like again to re-echo on these things when you're using process macro. I know, as we agreed, a number of us have already installed the process macro into the spaces. If I've not done, then I think we will do it anytime. It's important to do this. It's user-friendly. It cannot be a challenge. The most important, as we use process macro again, is to reflect on how we have theorized or conceptualized. If you have come up with a theorized model or conceptual model, you need to know how the arrows are moving. You need to know what variables you have in your conceptual model. Which variables do you have? How are they related to each other? Now, you realize that somewhere here I'm using 3 variables, but in your model, you could be having more than 3 variables. But within the model that you have, as you conceptualize, you discover that maybe you have a modulator. You have a modulator somewhere. So I'm just trying to imagine, I'm using models. You know, a model is something that presents reality. So since I'm using a model, just imagine, how is your study like? Imagine, how is your model like? If you look at, I'm trying to actually to look at this from those who are using quantitative approach. For those who are using qualitative approach, I don't know how we have conceptualized, but for me, I'm looking at, you have gone through the literature review, you have done the mind mapping, you have done the mapping, the concept, you can come up with a conceptual model, and you know how these arrows relate to each other. So if you look at them, you have to look at them critically and see where is the modulator. You have a mediation in your model, in a conceptual model, but again, where is the modulator touching? That arrow for the modulator touching. Is it touching the predictor that maybe the direction of the predictor and the dependent variable directly, or it is touching the predictor and the mediator? That maybe when you introduce predictor, I mean a modulator between the predictor and the modulator, you will have an effect. Either the effect will increase or will reduce. Now you need to look at that. Why do you need to look at this? There are those already inbuilt models which have been proven depending on which moderated mediation testing are looking for. Of course, in line of how the arrow moves. So you need to look at that so that you know whether you use the process model 5, the process model 4, the process model 1, the process model 58, 59, all that is important. So once you master that, so that you know when to use process model 5, when to use process model 6, I mean 7, when to use process model 14 or 15. So if I find that I'm looking at this, for example, the way this is now, my interest is to look at, yes, I've found that mediation exists, yes, but then I want to see if you introduce a modulator. Modulator could be, remember the choice between modulator, we can take moderators as categorical variables. Categorical variables. A categorical variable is that variable whose values can be obtained by classification based on certain attributes. Now, this means you also need to understand your unit of analysis. What is your unit of analysis? What do you think could be the possible modulators as you try to explore your predictor in a context of your study? What is likely to be modulator? Now, you may find that maybe if you're looking at like the satisfaction, employee satisfaction, you may be able to look at gender, for example. Do you find the way female are satisfied is the same as the way male are satisfied? No, yes, you may have the income people are earning, then they are spending, but do women become more satisfied when they are spending more or when they are spending less? So under what condition do we find the level of spending explaining the relationship between their level of income and level of satisfaction? So I think we need to look at that. So where is the arrow touching? Where it's touching, that's where we now need to see what happens to the indirect effect when you introduce the modulator in the relationship between the predictor and the mediator. But you see where the arrow is touching between X1 and M1. But this is not in isolation of the whole thing. So that's why now why I like bootstrapping, it keeps on looking at the whole sample. So the sample is not about these two variables. It looks at also the this y. So the bootstrapping it helps again to bring an element of simultaneous testing now. That's advantage simultaneous testing. So even if you had more than 3 variables, you have another model another variable somewhere, which is leading to this directory. Still, you would be able to run a model which considers all the variables. So mainly, as you look at this, you need to study and see where the arrows are. And then you'll be able to know if you have to use process model 8 as you do moderated mediation, you need to look at the arrows where they are touching. But here the interest to see if it can moderate that direct relationship between the predictor and mediator, and also the relationship between the predictor and the dependent variable at the same time. If it is your interest, then you need to know which process model are you going to consider. If it is like that, then here you find that now your interest is to see, yes, there's a mediation, but then if you introduce a moderator between the mediator and the dependent variable, what happens? So you need to remember that when to use process model 14. At times you may have multiple mediators. You have 2 mediators, and also you have the moderation. You want to test again for moderation or the moderating effect on the relationship between M1 and Y, the mediator and dependent variable. At the same time, the mediator 2 and the dependent variable. Of course, while you test, you can see there's a simultaneous mediation testing and simultaneous moderation testing. These are a bit complex models. Now, always, when you are conceptualizing with the guidance of the theory and the empirical studies in the context of your study. Now, when you try to look at the way the model is drawn, please pay attention to the arrows. Pay attention to the theoretical guidance. You may find you have a model like this, and then the question that will come, how did you test for those 2? You had 2 mediators. How did you handle that? You have 1 moderator which is looking at 2 things. The 2 you have, in other words, multiple moderation testing. How did you handle that? How do you handle the situation of multiple mediators and also having a moderator in your model? This is very, very important. You need to keenly look at the conceptual model. Look at it. And then by the time you come to analysis, ensure that the final model which you have derived has paid attention or has considered your initial conceptual model. And I think that's very important. And so when you are using process macro, then you need to know that you use process model 14. And then you need also to look at when you use process model 15 and others. So if you have a modulator that is now going to influence the relationships, 1, between the predictor variable and the mediator, at the same time, the relationship between the mediator and the dependent variable. I think that's also very important, and that's when you use process model 58. So as we continue, it's important to remember this, when to use what. So when to use which process model depends on your theorization, depends on your conceptualization, depends on your conceptual model or your theoretical model, or even your mathematical model. So I tend to bend on one direction, but for those who come from math science, you know, we basically rely on defined models also, which are mathematically driven. But all in all, they are models. They are models, so we have to test them. Chair, allow me, we do some bit of practical on this. Although we can't do the moderated mediation on all of these models, for today we may look at one or two, and then you will keep again practicing for the betterment of learning. For me, basically, I think that's very important. So I have the data set, which again, there are some data sets I've been trying to we have been having. Let me first open it, then I have to share. Let me open it so that we can, I don't take much time. One is saying, okay, as it is opening, maybe I can keep looking at this. If there's a question, I can explain as I'm proceeding. Francis is saying, how do we access the various software for analysis? I think accessing them is not a challenge. One, it depends on if you're in an academic institution, there are some institutions that pay for them, and you can access them at institutional level. Those softwares like EMOS software, like Starter, like Spaces. There are some institutions that pay for them. But on the other hand, you know, education is an investment. You can also buy them. You can purchase them online. Two, we have also people who usually have them. Those who do analysis. I think if you have a challenge, I can still guide you. There are some people who have them, who have read about, they have the license for them. So you can get them. Others, they are online, but they are trial versions. Sometimes they take 30 days. So those softwares are there. They are there, Starter, EMOS, eViews, all those are there. They are there. The other programming software, all those softwares are there. You can get them. Share, may you confirm whether the data set can or is seen?
Yes, me, I can see it from here.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, I want to use just there's a theory behind this, or if you look at the consumption function, I know we all spend. I am using this hypothetically to derive what I'm supposed to explain. But for those who have the data set, you can still use your data set to do all this. The reason why I'm using this, I think all of us, we spend. If we don't spend, we save. And to some extent, we all earn, either directly or indirectly. And I felt this could be one of the theoretical model that I can use to explain this. I'm sure there's a theory behind this way we feel satisfied in life whenever we earn something. So I am also, when I use this, that means, as I explained, my assumption here is that the satisfaction, the level of satisfaction, which I'm calling SATISF, is the level of satisfaction, is my dependent variable, outcome variable, response variable, depending on which words I'm using. Then the level of income is my independent variable, or what we call predictor variable. Then here, spending, SPEND, is the level of spending, is going to be my mediator. It's going to be my mediator. Then I also have SAV, which is savings, is also going to be my mediator. The reason why I'm saying this is that according to my theoretical assumption that I have here, is that, as I use this example, is that when you earn income, you either spend it or you save it. And that saving or spending leads to the level of satisfaction. So that means now, if I'm to consider both the level of spending and the level of saving at the same time in my model, I'll be having multiple mediation. And that means I'll be having multiple mediation. Then I'm also at the same time looking at the modulator. One of the modulators I'm considering is age. That again, the level of spending depends on the age. When do you spend more? When do you save more? Maybe the age element comes in. And so age becomes modulator. Then gender, male or female. So I think that's the reason why I have used this hypothetical example to explain this. So even your data in your study, if one looks at the data, can depict even the theories you are likely to use, especially if one been researching that area. I look at the data and I see the variables you're having. I go back the theory, the theoretical underpinning that you have. I know that somewhere, somehow, the data is not well aligned with the theory, or the variables you're using are not coming from the right theories. And yet, you want to provide evidence-based policies. So idea, this is why I'm using this. So my assumption is now there must be theory behind the data that I have. So I've explained why I've chosen this. Now, so I'm going now to look at the moderated mediation in right here. Moderated mediation testing of what? I'm going to look at age, moderating the relationship between the level of income and the level of spending. The level of spending. And again, at the same time, the level of spending leading to the satisfaction. So in other words, I'm looking at the age, moderating the relationship between the level of income, which is the independent variable, level of income is independent variable, and the level of spending, which is my level of spending is my mediator. So you can see I'm going to use the model what? Model 7. I'm going to use model 7. Now, so what do? I go to analyze. We agreed that for those who are practicing, you need to follow the steps that you do it when you're free. You go to analyze, then regression, and then we go to process. Macro version 4.1 by Hayes Preacher. Then I'm taking level satisfaction to be my dependent variable. I remember, if you remember Cartesian graph, Cartesian modeling, where y is always having the dependent. Then x is independent. So where there's x variable, you know that is independent if you follow the Cartesian theory of naming. So my independent variable is, which is x variable, is the income, and my mediator, we are considering the level of spending. So here I'm saying the level of income influences the level of spending, the level of spending influences the level of satisfaction. But the influence between the level of income and the level of spending depends on the age of an individual. So age becomes the moderating variable or the moderator. Now, because I'm looking at now this, that means the model I'm going to choose is number 7. Then from there, what option do I need? Basically, what I need is this. I need to generate a code of visual link interaction. Then I need to look at this aspect of standard deviation. One, I can also ask it to define all variables that you define products. So let me ask it to define. Then I choose the -1 standard deviation and +1 standard deviation. Why am I concerned with this? It's because I want to know that moderation, whether for example, the indirect effect exists at high, medium, or age. In other words, at young, when somebody is young, when somebody is old, when somebody is average. So average now, it will just compute depending on the standard deviations of the scores. And then it will tell me the category, 3 categories where we can have that effect for the age. So it will have to show me that level. Now, I can continue. Then I click OK. As we have been sharing, it will take some time. Let's wait. When it comes again, I have to share. I have to share the output. It is still running. Okay, as it is running, I can say question. Maybe I can look at it and I explain as it is running. This is asking, in a theory, the independent variables, mediator or moderator and dependent variable. What does mediator or moderator mean to the theory? I don't know that I'll be able to answer it well because it seems to be having, the way the question is, seems to be having a number of things in it. My view is this, that when you are looking at theorization or conceptualization, you have to review theories. Reviewing theories that explain that construct, there must be a dependent variable that you want to explain. Now, when you look at the theories, you are able, of course, these theories are not, may not even be in your for example, developed in your area. So you have to find out domesticating. Now, domestication of theory again is guided by a number of things. One, you have seen of recent, you are using success stories, failure stories, why you are trying to look at the practice. Now, if you discover that this theory is explaining a practice, you can, some people actually use even different approaches. Some people look at the story writing, where you look at the context, action, result, then the key lessons you draw. Now, some of the key lessons you draw, you find that they help you to get those variables now. Now, having got those variables from the theories that you are using to explain that practice, then you are able to identify among these variables, which are the predictors, which ones are going to be moderators, which ones are going to be mediators. And again, when you look at them, go back to the theory and see, you see how the theory again is trying to explain the link between those variables. And in addition, you review empirical work, empirical studies, and see how have other studies tried to look at these variables, how they measured them, how they try to look at the relationships. And that is where we go and again look at hypothesis testing. Hypothesis testing. So I look at that. You need also to see, I know you need to know again different ways of reviewing literature, where you are using progressive coherence in that area. Where is the argument taking? What are the missing links? What are the gaps? And those gaps help you to develop the hypothesis. Now, I'm going a little bit ahead of what you have asked because the question is just only telling how do we know that this one is mediator or moderator. The theory must inform the practice, that yes, for this to really explain what is happening in practice, we need to identify moderators, mediators. And the theory must also emphasize that if you read critically, some theories can be inherent, but when you domesticate the theory, you see that moderation, mediation coming up. I think peace, I've tried to explain, although I don't know whether I have exhausted exactly what your mind requires me to try to explain, but this is how far I can try. Maybe if you have not, we can still engage each other for deep understanding on this. Otherwise, this is the same thing I'm saying, that theory, the theories help you. You get constructs, metaphors that help you to conceptualize. When you conceptualize, you are looking at those constructs. Now the question that when does a construct become a variable? I think that is another section which is about operationalization and measurement variables. I think they not to go that far. It has opened, I think, let me continue. Chair, may you confirm whether the output is seen?
Yes, we can see the output.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, from the output, we need to explain and see what is happening. Now, here we have the outcome variable, which is now, in this case, it has modeled to see the prediction with the outcome variable being spending. And remember, spending, we took it as our mediator. Then, when we look at this other model down, we have constant, income, age, then interaction effect. Remember, our interaction, our moderator was between the level of income and the level of spending. So the model is telling us that the income now, with that age being there, they are predicting the level of spending. As you can see, the R square of 0.889. And if you look at the model fitness, it is with the p-value being less than 1% or 5%, it means that the model is fitting. Now, from the prediction point of view, we can say that yes, yeah, these are very important. But it was not, our main aim here was not at prediction. We wanted to see whether the moderating effect exists. Now, if you look at the, sorry. So I had moved the cursor. Yeah, so if you look at the age, which is our moderator, you can see that the age, in terms of prediction, there's zero that exists in between this boundary. And when you look at p-value, it's above 5%. So age is not key. It is there, but not significant. Now, the interaction still of the edge. How do we get interaction? It's just multiplication. We just multiply the coefficients for the level of income and age, and we get that interaction. Now, if you look at interaction coefficient, it is showing negative 0.0293, meaning that being negative, it would somehow show that reverse, that you'd find that the age tends, when the age tends to decrease, it could have an effect on the indirect relationship between between the level of income and the level of satisfaction, which is explained by the level of spending. But the point we want to pick here is that the indirect effect would be influenced by the age, but the age, if you look at the interactive effect, it is not significant. Why? Look at the p-value, it's 0.3884, which is above 5% or 1%. And again, when you look at the boundary down here, the lower limit, the lower and the upper, you can see 0 lies in between. So I think that is sufficient for us to know that the interaction exists but weak. It exists but weak. Now, the issue of why it is weak, it could be because maybe the sample size is a challenge. That means you have to revisit the sample size before you conclude and see whether your sample size was sufficient. 2, maybe that is what happens from the practice. The theory was saying this, but the practice telling you this. Then can you provide strong justification of why this this test that you carried out, you had theoretically and hypothesized that the moderated mediation exists. Now here you find it exists, but again, is not significant. Do you dismiss the results, or you have to strongly provide an explanation? This is something at PhD level that you must pay attention to. Do not leave the answer and say, yeah, it's what I wanted. I found this, it's not there. Then you stop there and you dismiss that theory seriously. No, you must now provide strong justification why you think this hypothesis was not supported. And indeed, it doesn't mean that really the moderation effect is not there. It is there, but weak. So the essence is that why do you think it is weak is where you need to tell us why it did not become significant. Now, as we continue, we can see, if you look at the tests of highest order and conditional interaction, again, when you look at the X times W to confirm the contribution of the modulator in the model, you can see if you have 0.0018 times 100, you can see that percentage very small. And if you look at the p-value and F statistic for the moderating effect, it's again weak. The model fitness is not strong. Now, remember the assumptions here, they tend to consider linear assumption, a linear model. So these are they are not non-linear model, they are linear model. That's why we have model fitness here. Now, so which means the moderating effect exists, but is not significant. Now, the other thing we would do maybe this one I look at it later. This one, data list free. This one, if you use it, helps you to get the other graph now. This is the one which you can use to generate graph. But if I go to graph, I can continue down. Now, if you look at the level of satisfaction, which is our dependent variable. Now, here we have got the level of income, the level of spending, predicting level of satisfaction. If among objective, you had maybe an objective to look at also the prediction of the level of income and of spending on this, on the dependent variable, you would now look at this and you see whether it is answered. Now, in this case, I can see that for spending is a key predictor because you can see the p-value is 0.00448, which is less than 5%, meaning that's significant. Even if I look at the boundary now, 0 does not lie. This in between these, so it's fine. The other level of income now becomes what? Insignificant predictor of level satisfaction. So what do we say about the direct effects? The direct effect now, what I see here, the direct effect, I can see that the direct effect is 0.1309. The issue is it significant? It is not significant. Now, if it is not significant, where do you think the other one has gone? That means maybe there is a full. Now, where does the full mediation come in? Now, when you look at the levels now, the level of age, looking at the lower, the higher, and the average, you can see that all of them, they are giving you the indirect effect becoming what? Significant. So indirect, you find that as you introduce the age in the model as a modulator, actually, within the boundary, now when it comes to drawing that graph, we shall see the graph again showing some bit of interactive effect, although may not be strong, but will be there. And you are finding that the indirect effect exists, but within a given range of the age. Now, this negative 2.13 is our lower standard deviation. This 0.00, the value of average age, and this one's 2.130 is the upper value of standard deviation. Now, within this range, if it is within this range of the standard deviation, the mediation indirect effect exists. But the direct effect you have seen, it's there, but not significant. So which means there is some bit of full mediation that exists. However, we are finding that, again, when you go to index of moderated mediation, if you look at the index value and see whether it is significant, it is not significant. Now, this gives us a conclusion that age is not significant moderator of the relationship between the level of income and the level of spending. Now, if you had decided that moderated mediation exists, but you did not particularly specify where it exists in the model clearly, at times you can try to show the arrow that it is within, maybe it is between the level of income and level of spending. At the same time, maybe the level of spending and level of saving. Now, in this case, you would do another analysis and see whether it could somehow maybe moderate the relationship between the mediator and the dependent variable. So that you see if this has failed, maybe it would be the other side. So moderated mediation testing, at times you need to consider certain assumptions in line of the theory and see whether you can probably to get the data at later stage and see whether you can bring a stronger argument in the work. But given this, you can see that the index of moderated mediation testing is showing that the edge does not provide strong moderation on the relationship between the level of income and the level of spending. Now, what we need to see is that we need to confirm this, this thing which I have found here of the indirect effect between these, because showing that some exists, the indirect effect some exists between negative 2.1301 and this other one. So if we plot the graph, we shall see what exactly happens. But this is what the results are saying. Now we need to get a graph now and see how it behaves. We get this section of the data set somewhere. The data set is here. We are going to use the syntax window and we generate this table, I mean this graph. So we can select the whole of this. If we select the whole of that, then we can copy and then go to file. Then from file, we go to syntax, we click syntax, and then we paste. After pasting, then we select. Now when we select, we can run the selection. The reason why I'm going to run the selection, I want to get another table of the new values created, which I can use to run the table, because these are just the standard deviations now. Okay. When I run, it has to give me the other table. Okay, let me now try to share that table, which has been generated. I hope it is this one. Share, do you see the table?
Yes, it can be seen.
Okay, so this is the table that has got standard deviations and those values. Remember when we are selecting, we selected the lower standard deviation of -1 and the other one. So it has to manipulate and see the lowest and the highest. One was -1, another was +1. But of course, I know that was the limit I gave. Although this one has to, this value is not standardized. I did not standardize them to the zeros and 1, 0. Since they are not standardized, then to give absolute values. But with those absolute values, we reflect that those boundaries now, the upper, the lower, and the average. So we can now do some bit of analysis. We need to generate a graph. There are some sections that I'm not seeing. I hope this for you. Do you see it clearly? Or it is still downloading? It is taking long to download.
Which one do you need?
I needed to get the graph, but that section of graph, it is black, meaning it is still downloading. Do you see the black thing also? Or it is my PC?
I think it's the same this side.
Okay, let me wait and see, because that black is not supposed to be there. Seems I shared when it was still downloading.
Gideon, sometimes the outputs from SPSS are too heavy. And if you have lots of it on your laptop, you may not actually see the outputs for this one here, the one that you are running. But I also know that sometimes the processing takes quite some good time before you see the output. So I think it's either or. If it hasn't taken long, then you have a lot on your laptop, and you may have to delete some of those things before you see new ones.
Yeah, true, Prof. Let me try to remove some. I can unshare, then I share. It's now clear, I hope.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. It was still downloading, so let me now try to share the other one. So from here we can go to graph. I know somebody can use chart builder, but the easiest would be this one. I don't need to go chart builder when I already have the line graph here. If I can get the line graph, I can go to multiple. Then I define. When I define, I can have other statistical, since I have the mean, standard deviation. So from here, I can now put the value of dependent variable, which is age, level spending being modulated by age. So age, we have the category axis, which is the income. The variable we are looking at is the level spending. Remember the way we had we have hypothetically developed the hypothesis is that we are looking at whether age modulates the relationship between the level of income and the level of spending. That's why we have these two. But remember, why do we call it modulated mediation? It's because because the level spending is our mediator. And remember previously, for those who have been there, we had tested for the mediation of the level of spending on the relationship between the level of income and the level of satisfaction. That time we found a full mediation. Now we are saying that this may depend on the age. If age is in between, do we still have a full mediation? If we still have a full mediation, is this modulating? Is it becoming a strong modulator in our model, such that when we are trying to provide evidence-based policies, we should not take age for granted. Age would be very strong in informing, in other words, in providing those recommendations. So people must pay attention to age. So, okay. So I hope, Chair, you are seeing the output.
Yes, we can see the graph.
Now the graph here, it is level of income. All these values are in terms of standard deviation of the value. Of course, we looked at the standard deviation values at the range. Now, I think this is where we need now to pay attention to. What message do we give here? If I look at the if I look at this on average here, on average, when you look at 0, that was the average income. Then level of spending. As the level of income increases, also the level of spending increases up to a certain point on average, where you find that there's no big where the age, the variation in age doesn't matter so much. However, as you continue, as income continues to increase, we reach certain level where we find that this value here, sorry, let me move this. Where you find that you can see the one of negative, which is lower, where at it is the one which is sharp, where you find that at low value of the age, we find actually there's some bit of interactive effect, which is not so. It is a bit steep. If you look at negative, why you have negative 2.1.
Gideon, is it possible to make it slightly bigger so that we can actually identify the colors of the lines and see the changes? I don't know, I'm just wondering.
Let me try and see. Oh,
but if
can
it is not possible, if it is not possible, then you can leave it.
I'm trying to magnify it. I hope now it's a bit bigger. I don't know.
Yes,
I'll try to magnify it. This is how far I can magnify it. Chair, is it bigger than how it was before?
Yes, it has improved. It is slightly bigger.
Yeah, so we need to look at the steepness. Which one's steeper than the other? From what I can see, I see the one of negative 2.13 being steeper than the others, but that is at higher level of income. So at higher level of income, as income increases and level of spending increases, at higher level of income, we can see that the age mean is a lot, but at lower, it doesn't. So it tends to moderate, but we found that it was not strong moderator. But when it comes to average, we don't see age doesn't matter so much in terms of moderation. Because if you look at, if you extrapolate to I have 0.00 to up, you find that there's an intersection. So whether it is upper, I mean, depending on the age we are talking about, is it about on average, if you look at the data, you'd be able to compute the average age and see if the average age, say 45, if it is 45. So at 45, the age may not matter in terms of the relationship between the level of income and the level of spending, since you can see the intersection is somewhere up as you extrapolate. And from what I can see that when you look at level of income, you have 0.00, where it was average. Then you do extrapolate and you find that when you again go to the mean spending, it goes to around 40, somewhere like 48 or 50 there. That is the level of spending there. So if one has computed the average age using discrete statistics of the same data, you can be able to know the age, where you find that it doesn't matter so much in influencing or in moderating the relationship between this and this. It was weak, but it doesn't mean that it is not there, it is there. So at lower level of the age, you find that when income increases, age means a lot again. Young people, whenever their income increases, they actually spend a lot according to this one. But when income lowers, we don't see them spending much. Because you can see that sharp, I mean the one which is having negative, which is the lower age, you see as when you look at 23.98 level of income, it is sharp, that gradient sharper than the rest. So meaning that as income increases for young people, they always spend more. But when it reduces, you can see that again, when it comes to negative 23.98, it is now not steep. No, it is not steep. Instead here, what is steep here is the one of 2.13. So the old people, when their income reduces, the way they spend is not the same as the way the younger people spend. So that is in a line of the age moderating the relationship between the level of income and the level of spending. Chair, maybe the other one I wanted to mention was about when you theorize and you find that in your theorization, you have got two mediators at the same time. You also have a moderator. Now that depends where the moderator is. Now, assuming that I have two mediators, I have the level of spending as mediator and the level of saving as mediator. And I'm also going to look at the moderating effect of age in the model. I think you can also do that using the same procedure. You remember what is important here is to remember the steps you go through and the choice of the process model you are going to consider, depending on where the arrow is now. You remember that is the process model 14. Process model 14, where we have the two mediators. I think let me do this for us to remember that. The next which I usually find is this, that this one here, where you have got two mediators. You have got two mediators. In this case, the level of saving, the level of spending are mediators. The level of income is a predictor. Then the level of satisfaction is the dependent variable. But you have a modulator which is influencing the relationships between those two mediators, respectively, M1 and Y, then M2 and Y. If you have conceptualized, I know most people conceptualize that way, and when it comes to testing for moderated mediation, it becomes a problem. But this can be done also. You can do it using the same procedure. And I think what needs to be done, I want just to show the procedure of doing that. Then the rest can be done at your leisure. Now, once you have the two mediators, that means you introduce the two mediators there. So I have to bring the saving here. That's the point I wanted to make, that once you have got two mediators, that now age moderates that relationship between the level of saving and the dependent variable. At the same time, the level of saving and the dependent variable, then it is a matter of introducing that one there. And the rest, since I had chosen, then you make sure that you are using process model 14. So here there are process models. So you need to know the theory behind. Actually, I want to say that as I'm trying to conclude with this, if you are doing moderated mediation, then you need to know the models that you are going to use. And Preacher, Hayes, Heyer, et al., there is a stronger debate they are trying to emphasize here on the choice of models to use, when to use them, all these, as you are developing theory and testing the theories. Basically, this is where I think, if I look at the time, this is where we can stop. But I believe the whole thing, the whole process is the same once you have known what to do. Because if you learn here, you will still get the outputs, and the application will be in line of what the results are saying. I don't know whether I still have time. I need to be guided so that I don't go past time.
Thank you very much, Dr. Gideon, for your presentation. I think we have really stretched you for coming to 6 weeks of discussing mediation, data analysis, moderation, moderated mediation, and I hope members have picked something, especially those who have really progressed in their research. I think at this moment, we need to really go into a Q&A and we close the session. It's coming to 6. But I personally want to say that you have done a great job over time. As a team, we are grateful for the sacrifice you have made really to support those students and colleagues who are learning. Statistics is one of the most important areas at the PhD, very, very important at the PhD, and many colleagues get issues in interpretation and analyzing statistics. And my humble call as somebody who has gone through this is, whereas for a master's student, you normally go to for other people to support you, it is always advisable that you should sit and do this for yourself at a PhD level. Very, very advisable. So allow me at this moment, really invite a few contributions from senior colleagues who may also help in responding to some of the questions. I appreciate the presence of Dr. Edith Basaliwa, Dr. Goret Cheyune, Dr. Hassan Bashir, Dr. Isaac Newton Kayongo, Dr. Warren Tibesigwa, Professor Sam Aderamora, and many other colleagues whom I may not be able to identify. But also my senior colleagues and students who have really been supportive in statistics, like Bernard. Bernard, we appreciate your commitment and support to the students community. And I think you're among those who have been able to support the platform to move ahead. We appreciate you, especially in the area of panel data statistics, among others. So allow me at this moment, really go into the Q&A. Colleagues, if anybody who has something to support, colleagues are there. Professor Antai is online and he can also give his contribution as our senior mentor. There is a question from Peace. In a theory, there are IVs, mediator or moderator, and DV. What does the mediator or moderator mean to the theory? Thank you. I think this was somehow responded to by the presenter in the due course of the discussion, unless when other senior colleagues may want to add on this. Peace again, is it possible for all IVs to be significant? If yes, how will my argument be if all IVs are significant? This is also tackled by the presenter, but senior colleagues can add on a few comments here and there. And then lastly, from Sylvia Rakit, my question is on which model is efficient for nonlinear data? Which model is more efficient for nonlinear data? I think that we can respond to that. Dr. Gideon and other senior colleagues, I will request Dr. Goretti, if she's online. Professor Damora, if you can have a comment, you're an expert in possibly in panel data. I will request you to have a comment, and then also Dr. Goretti will be able to close at the end. But let us first finish the Q&A. Yes, Dr. Gideon, the question from...
thank you. Thank you, Sylvia, for that question. If we have issues of non-linear and linear, I think the best would be to use R programming. R programming will take care of those other issues. I submit, Chair.
Okay, Sylvia, does that satisfy you? Sylvia, you can unmute if you have anything to really make your question very clear.
Yeah, thank you, Doctor. And thank you, Dr. Gideon. Yeah, is advising me to explore another programming approach to do that. And yes, I'll try to do that. But also the other question is if I'm estimating, for example, marginal effects are not coefficients, can I still use a Modi graph, or I can use the marginal plots to plot the moderation? Thank you, Doctor.
Okay, that is very clear. I think that is what you wanted before. Yes, Dr. Gideon.
Hello?
Yes.
I know that it depends on where you're coming from. But if you look at the extent to which the debate is going, the marginal plots are being used well, but for me, I think it depends on how you critically bring the arguments at hand. But for me, the best would be, again, why don't you use the current theories that have been argumenting on moderation and mediation testing, where you come from Baron and Kenny, and you use the Modi graph. I know there's that debate going on, but if you have that issue of non-linear linearity, for me, I think you'd use a software that considers the generalized and the non-predictive kind of situations. So, but I think we can still have a chat physically, and we expound on that.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Gideon.
Okay, senior colleagues, any contribution to the debate? Professor Sam, are you on?
Chair, let me say something.
Yes, Professor Antai, thank you.
Chair, well, I know that Tisha has asked a question. Sylvia has a question, and probably there are also a number of other questions which are not yet resolved, which we haven't responded to, but which we think these will be discussed and resolved. And I think even the issue of interpretation of results may need probably more time. We can possibly, Gideon has shown us how to run, and we can generate the statistics, but the actual interpretation and relating the interpretation to the hypothesis and our objectives of research questions, we may need more time. Of course, not now. Maybe Gideon can break a bit, but later on we may have to come back to that question of interpreting. And the question of introducing mediators and moderators, and also moving into the direction Gideon has taken us into, where you have a mediation that is moderated, that kind of thing. We don't simply wake up and introduce those variables in there, what you may call the third variable effects, in form of mediation and moderation. Right? I know that the traditional thinking is where you had a number of independents affecting the dependent. But in certain disciplines, it's very hard for you to do, to do your research without introducing mediators and moderators in some disciplines, because these variables are necessary, especially if you're going to introduce an intervention, right? You want to see whether the intervention works well for females, for males, or for people who are highly educated, and for those who are not probably highly educated, right? So, for example, if I could briefly, if you allow me, Chair, if you're going to look at, for example, reasons, incidentally, I'm just adding on what Gideon said, because I know Chris asked a question, when should we introduce this? Because we know we have independent variables, dependent variables. So when do we introduce this in a theory? Again, if I could just remind you a few things, some time back, we did say that you can test a theory, right? So your research may test a theory, right? But you can also build a theory. So we are talking about theory building and theory testing. Now, if you are testing a theory, ordinarily your research will have one theory in most cases, because you are testing that theory, right? So the developers of the theory did their job, but we want to test it in our settings and see whether the theory will yield similar results. So in such a situation, situations, right, when you look at your context and probably the problem that you want to articulate, you may discover that yes, it works, but maybe there are certain things that are not really explored and explained. For example, you may see that the results may hold, but in certain situations, given the differences in terms of demographics and so forth, may not hold. So you actually introduce in such situations either a moderator or a mediator, and that will be now what you will consider to be new in that kind of study, right? Now, if you are developing a theory, the situation will be totally different. So sometimes there are many overlapping reasons for including mediating variables and probably moderating variables. If I could just give you one or two, especially for mediation, if you want to manipulate, I've been talking about interventions, right? So mediation analysis will provide a check on whether the intervention produced a change in the mediating variable, right? Especially if it was assigned, maybe designed to change, right? If the intervention was designed to bring in the element of gender, right? And then so that we can actually see how the program will affect on certain things like norms, right? And we want to make observations. So in this case, we introduce a mediating variable, right? So we want to do some bit of manipulation in such situations. Sometimes you want to see whether there will be a change in the program, program improvement, right? So you are talking about, we know that when we introduce a program, we shall see a change the other side, but somehow you may have to introduce a mediator, right? So that you see the difference between successful and unsuccessful interventions in such situations. Right, so there are so many reasons, as you can see, if you want to build and or maybe refine a theory. I've already talked about that. So that is really when you introduce the mediating variable, right? But you can also introduce moderators, right? Now, the reasons why you introduce moderators are a little bit different from the reasons for introducing mediators, right? And for a moderating variable, as Gideon has taken us through this kind of study, we discover here the strength and the form of a relation between two variables may actually depend on the value of a moderating variable, right? And a moderator in this case is a variable that modifies the form of a relationship between X and Y, or probably the strength of the relationship between X and Y, right? And we may want to see, right, what will really happen once we introduce a mediator in this case. And if you pick from the discussions we had last week, we said that this moderator variable that we introduce can actually be continuous, right? But it can also be categorical variable, right? Possibly this again ties in with what Sylvia was saying, right? Especially if you're going to use secondary data that exists already, somebody has collected that data, right? Some of the variables you have are probably categorical variables, right? While others are probably continuous variables. In such situations, there is nothing much that you can do. If you want to probably use fresh data because there are certain things you want to explain that are not really captured by the other variable, then you can actually engage in a fresh data collection so that you are able to explain some of these things here, right? So of course, we need to be mindful of the reasons for including moderating variables. Do not do this thing because you saw somebody who presented a PhD thesis the other day had moderators, the other one had mediators, and that another one had a moderated mediation, and you all rush because it's a fashion. It must be guided by theory, right? And again, you must know whether you are building a theory or you are testing a theory or you are doing both. And of course, that is also a little bit important. Now, some of the reasons why we include moderator variables is because we acknowledge, right, the complexity of behavior. When we are dealing with the issues of behavior, right, we see complexities associated with behavior. And therefore, the investigation of moderating variables, right, will help you acknowledge the complexity of behavior, will help you acknowledge experiences, right, and relationships, right, because we know that individuals are never the same. And therefore, you'll find that for young people, the behaviors will be a little bit different from the fellows who are middle-aged, and for those fellows who are a little bit old, because we have different experiences. And therefore, it would be a little bit unusual if there were no differences across these individuals. So in such situation, then we introduce moderators because we want to see whether intervention will work better for young people compared to the old, or to work better for the women as compared to the men. So that will bring in that element. Now, the other reason and why you would introduce a moderator is because really you want to generalize results, right? And since you are interested in generalizing, you pick a sample from a population, right? And at the end of the day, you run all those things and you assume that actually the results you get for the sample will be generalizable to the population, right? And again, that you know very well when you look at theories, right, where you talk about the local theories, and of course you talk about grand theories, and of course mid-range theories, if you still remember those aspects. Now, moderation analysis will provide a way to test whether an intervention, probably if you want to introduce an intervention, has similar effects across groups, right? If you're talking about young people, middle-aged and old, you want to see whether that intervention you are introducing, right, will have similar effects across those groups, or if you're talking about men and female, whether it will have. So in this case, it will be important, for example, to demonstrate that intervention effects are obtained for males and females if the program will be disseminated to a whole group which contains males and females, if you're going to disseminate it to the entire country, where you have varied groups of individuals from different sections, then you may have to really test for this moderation, so that at the end of the day, you can generalize your results, and that becomes a little bit important. Now, of course, the other reason is, why you introduce moderator is because you want to specify certain effects. We call that specificity of effects, right? And this is really a little bit contrary to the point that I've just given you on generalizability of results. So in this case, when we talk about specificity of effects, right, we want to identify groups for which an intervention has its greatest effects or no effects. Like now in the case of Gideon, who was talking about income and spending, yes, you may find that actually as income increases, right, spending also increases, right? That is true, but this may actually be different across, right, certain categories of individuals, the young people, the middle-aged, and the old people, and even among the males and the females, right? And that's what we call really specificity of effects. We want to be very, very specific where the effects are taking place, right? And that's why I say that I think we need more time to go into the interpretation of these things, and then even the way we theorize, so that we understand this. And possibly, again, Chair, allow me to stop on this one. But of course, there are so many other reasons why we introduce those things. Moderators can also be used to test a theory, right? So you can introduce moderators to test a theory, but you can also introduce mediators, as I say, to test a theory, right? So of course, in this case, we, and again, this goes to whether you are dealing with a local theory, right? Or you are talking about really mid-range or probably grand theories. So in this case, we are simply saying that if you are dealing with the effects, right, and interventions, there are situations where intervention effects may be theoretically expected in one group and not another. Especially when you are theorizing, you know that, yes, I think given the testing ground where I'm really developing this and testing this, the effects, right, may be theoretically different. So you expect these effects to be different. So in such situations, you introduce, right, this moderator. So for example, there may be different social, especially if you are dealing with the youth, right, and the drug, or probably you're talking about drinking, or probably socializing, or probably taking cigarettes or tobacco, whatever it is, right? And you want to introduce an intervention so that these fellows, so you may find that there will be different intervention effects for boys versus girls because of reasons that are probably culturally centered. So in this way, then a moderation or mediation may be combined, especially if it is expected that a theoretical mediating process will be present in one group, right, but not in another group. Then you may think of bringing both moderation and mediation in a theory. Chair, allow me to stop there.
Thank you very much, Professor, for unpacking the issue of moderation and mediation in support of today's presenter and our seasoned presenter on this, Dr. Gideon. Professor, we support your contribution in the different aspects and also your support on this platform, being the brain behind this. I think members, we appreciate Professor for that. Professor, Dr. Gideon has shared something in the chat. Members, you can pick it up on moderated mediation. I think this is the presentation of the day. People can pick it up and use it. Allow me at this moment, really from the comments from Professor Antai, which actually have been exhaustive, invite Dr. Goret Chayune to give us a few remarks and a closing prayer. Dr. Goreti, if you're on, please.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Walugembe, and I would like to add my voice to thank Dr. Gideon for the insights in these issues of moderation, mediation, the indirect effect we've looked at today, in the moderated mediation. I think there's a lot of learning that is taking place, and also to the benefits of especially those in advanced levels of analyzing their data. So I would like to thank also Professor Antai for the additions, the clarification he has made in the whole of this process of the presentations made by Dr. Gideon. We really appreciate, we are learning a lot, and also we look forward to learning more. Sometimes you come across is it mediated moderation or a moderated mediation? That one, I think I could have missed it if it was last week because I wasn't online. I think that would give more clarification on all this analysis we are learning from our colleagues. Otherwise, I would like to thank Professor Antai and the team, and to look forward to subsequent presentations in this regard to enhance our research capabilities. Thank you so much. And I would like us to pray to end this. Father Lord, we thank you for the wisdom, knowledge, and understanding shared on this platform. And I pray, Father Lord, that you continue guiding us with wisdom to take this further in terms of improving our research agenda. In this, we pray, Father Lord, through your Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Blessed Sunday.
Thank you very much, Doctor, and members. Wish you a nice Sunday. We meet next week. Thank you. God willing.